They say the police arrest criminals, but the justice system lets them go free. That might be true in some countries, but in other places you reap what you sow. And when bad decisions catch up to you, the price can be spending the rest of your life behind bars. Let's dive into dangerous people reacting to life sentences. Criminals often react in surprising ways when they hear their sentences, and Nicholas Lindsay was no exception when he received his life sentence. The trial took place in the year 2013 when he was 23, but Nicholas was just 16 years old when he committed a terrible crime. He shot and killed a police officer responding to a call in St. Petersburg, Florida. The killing of Officer David Crawford sparked outrage among law enforcement. A massive manhunt ensued, and by the next day, they had tracked down Nicholas Lindsay. The judge sentenced him to life in prison, citing not only the gravity of the crime, but also Nicholas's complete lack of remorse during the hearings. Shockingly, the cold-hearted teenager laughed upon hearing he would spend the rest of his life in prison. Since then, Lindsay has filed multiple appeals to have his sentence reduced, but every request has been denied. The court maintains that he still shows no signs of regret. Diana Lovejoy was married to Greg Mulvihill for 7 years before they divorced in 2014. Initially, Diana had custody of their son, but a judge later ruled for shared custody. Despite keeping the house, Diana was ordered to pay her ex-husband $120,000 as part of the settlement. Instead of complying, she hatched a deadly plan. Diana conspired with her firearms instructor to murder Greg. Fortunately, Greg survived the ambush when the bullet narrowly missed his heart. He identified Diana as the mastermind, leading to her immediate arrest and an additional order to pay $50,000 in damages. Her reaction to the verdict: Diana fainted right there in the courtroom.
We, the jury, in the above account cause, find the defendant, Weldon K. McDavid, guilty of the crime of conspiracy to commit murder.
The plot had been to stage the murder as a robbery gone wrong, but with Greg surviving the attack and identifying the shooter, there was little Diana's defense could argue. In 2010, 19-year-old Shandell Jackson attempted to rob 21-year-old college student Nathan Potter. When Nathan said he had no money, Shandell shot him on the spot, killing him instantly. Shandell was convicted of intentional homicide and sentenced to life without parole, a punishment he did not take well. As the sentence was announced, Sandel turned to the victim's family and began shouting insults at them. He then directed his rage at the judge, cursing her as officers tried to restrain him. It took multiple officers to subdue him, and he was eventually dragged out of the courtroom screaming, while his family wept from the gallery. In her final remarks, the judge stated that Shandel's behavior only proved her point. He lacked self-control and remained a danger to society, making a life sentence the only option. Sometimes when there's nothing left to do, people break down in tears. In 2019, 19-year-old Mackenzie Sharila received a life sentence for a horrific act. She had been driving with her boyfriend, Dominic Russo, and their friend, Davion Flanagan, when she deliberately crashed the car into a pole. Though Mackenzie survived the crash, Dominic and Davion died instantly. Her punishment? The harshest sentence allowed under United States law, short of the death penalty, a verdict Mackenzie clearly did not expect. While she claimed it was an accident, investigators uncovered evidence to the contrary. Surveillance footage revealed Mackenzie had driven the same route the day before, planning the crash. Additionally, her toxic relationship with Dominic, including physical abuse, painted a clear picture of premeditation. In 2021, a 14-year-old boy from Florida stood trial for the murder of a 13-year-old girl, making him one of the youngest offenders in the United States to receive a life sentence. Here's how Aiden Fucci reacted. Unlike most teenagers who would break down crying, Aiden showed no emotion. His chilling lack of reaction was reminiscent of a psychopath. Despite his young age and innocent appearance, Aiden was convicted for stabbing the victim, his close friend, over 100 times. Surveillance cameras captured the two walking into a wooded area. Later, only Aiden was seen running out, leaving behind the girl's lifeless body. The crime was particularly shocking due to its senselessness. Aiden admitted he committed the act simply because he felt like killing someone that night. This disturbing lack of remorse made the court's decision to impose a life sentence inevitable. In 2018, 52-year-old Charles Pickett wasn't technically sentenced to life in prison, but in practice, it's the same thing. He received a 75-year prison term. His sentence came after he struck 9 cyclists with his truck, killing 5 of them. At the time of the incident, Charles was under the influence of drugs, so it wasn't deemed an accident, but rather vehicular homicide. When he heard his sentence, Charles reacted like this.
Ever have the opportunity to get out and get behind the wheel of a car again. And the only way to ensure that is to make sure that the numbers that he's going to go away for and serve in prison don't allow for even that possibility.
There's nothing I can do to ever take it back. I'll live with this the rest of my life. I want to give my life for the people that murdered and killed.
In this case, however, the man seemed genuinely remorseful. As he listened to his fate, he offered an apology to the victims' families present in the courtroom, accepting his destiny with some sense of responsibility. In 2017, a crime shook the United States. Seth Welch and Tatiana Fusari were convicted for the death of their 10-month-old daughter. The infant died from malnutrition and dehydration while under their care. The couple tried to justify their actions with religious beliefs, but the court ruled it was murder. This is considered felony homicide and carries a life sentence without parole. While the mother broke down crying and appeared to accept her fate, the father was visibly shocked, seemingly in disbelief that their actions had resulted in such a severe penalty. In the end, this sentence was likely for the best, as public outrage over their crime made it unsafe for them to ever re-enter society. Back in 2007, a teenager named Jennifer Mee made headlines across the United States for an unusual reason: a 5-week-long bout of hiccups. No one could have predicted that by 2013, Jennifer would make the news for a much darker reason. She was sentenced to life in prison for orchestrating a robbery that resulted in murder. Jennifer had lured Shannon Griffin into a trap, where 2 accomplices ambushed and shot him. As the mastermind behind the crime, she received a life sentence. Upon hearing that she would spend the rest of her life behind bars, Jennifer broke down in tears. When Esteban Carpio entered the courtroom for his sentencing, he wore a mask resembling something out of a horror movie. But it wasn't for show, it was to prevent him from biting and spitting on law enforcement officers. Esteban was sentenced to life in prison in 2006 for a crime committed the previous year. While being questioned by 2 detectives in Providence, Rhode Island, Esteban attacked one of them after the other had left the room to get water. He managed to seize the detective's weapon, fatally shoot him, and then jumped out of a 3rd-story window in an attempt to escape. When he received his life sentence, Esteban simply said that he faced the reality of what he had done every day and accepted the expected outcome without protest. There was no chance of parole. The court determined that his behavior in wearing the mask and acting out was part of a calculated attempt to appear mentally unwell, presumably to secure a lighter sentence. That strategy, however, failed. Thank you so much for watching until the end. Let me know in the comments below which of these reactions you found the most unbelievable.